Hello and welcome. Today I'm going to be talking about some of the problems that musicians have that we kind of don't want to talk about. If we haven't met yet, I'm Jennifer Roig-Francolí. I'm the creator of the Art of Freedom for Musicians. I'm a professional violinist, have been my whole life, and I'm also a certified Alexander technique teacher. I specialize in helping musicians online of all skill levels to enjoy what they do more with less pain and less stress, less overwhelm, less physical discomfort, and lots more meaning in their lives in all areas of what we do. Music should be fun, it shouldn't be painful, and it's no fun if you're stressed out about it. So let's talk about some of these problems that I've discovered musicians have. In my many years of coaching musicians as an Alexander technique teacher, and also from decades of living as a professional musician and being surrounded by colleagues who are experiencing these types of problems that I'm going to talk about. So I'm going to start off by talking about professional musicians in this video. Mostly that's going to be about professionals because professionals are already in a career and they're being hired. You're being hired to perform. Maybe you're a soloist, you are on tour, you're hired by other orchestras, maybe you're a chamber musician and your group is getting hired, you're traveling, you're performing a lot, or maybe you're an orchestra musician and you have a steady job already. And the thing that all these people have in common is that usually you don't want to let on if you have an issue that is interfering with your performance somehow. So these problems that professionals don't want to talk about are often physical discomfort, sometimes to the point of pain. I'll never forget when I went to a live masterclass in Cincinnati with Nadja Salerno-Sonnenberg. And it was early on in my Alexander technique teacher training, and I was really interested in finding out how top-level musicians manage to maintain their high level of performance, touring all the time, performing concertos over and over, night after night. How do they stay out of pain? I really was curious about this, still am. And so I asked her, because she opened up the masterclass for questions, I asked her how she did it. And I'll never forget her answer because I was so shocked by it, to be honest. She said that she ices her arms every day. And something in me just thinks, wait, hold on a second. We shouldn't have to do that. There's something wrong here. Do you kind of get the same feeling when you hear that a professional high-level musician is having to ice her arms every day? I mean, maybe if you're a football player or a baseball player or I don't know. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with her doing that. I want to be clear that I'm not trying to be critical of her at all. I think actually she's an amazing musician and person. Very, very interesting. But personally, I would like to find, and I have found through the Alexander technique, I would like to have ways to keep myself open, free, flexible, movable in my body, and relaxed in mind and body and spirit in such a way that I don't have to ice my arms every day, because that's not fun. I would like to be whole and well and ready for anything and able to meet the challenges that come my way, whether it's 3 or 4 hour rehearsals when I play with Apollo's Fire in Cleveland, or whether it's performing as a soloist. And, I just did almost the whole Bach D minor partita in performance, which is kind of a hefty, I did everything except the first movement, by the way, because my son wanted to play the first movement. But playing that whole partita is kind of a tour de force. And I was able to play that with no discomfort, no niggling, and I was practicing up until then quite a bit every day. I want to be able to have control over myself in such a way that I can stay open, free, flexible, and also increase my endurance steadily so that I don't need to be doing something like icing my arms. So I kind of got off onto a tangent for talking about that story, but it's really important because I know for a fact, and I've met so many people on the road, people that I've come into contact with in the profession. Right now, orchestra musicians come to mind, and I know for a fact that most professional orchestra musicians are actually in pain, physical pain, and they don't want to admit it because of fear for their jobs. Now, in a professional orchestra, very often you have tenure, so it shouldn't have to be an issue because they're not going to lose their jobs. And still, there's a kind of a stigma that arises if you admit that you are playing in pain. Does this sound familiar to anybody out there? Does anybody else feel like you kind of have to push through pain because it comes with the territory? Maybe you believe that you need to practice if you're an amateur or you're a student. Maybe there's a belief that you have to practice for 4 or 5 hours a day. And then what happens if you do that every day? Do you get burned out? And so does that emotional, psychological discomfort translate into physical pain? That's another area of problems that musicians come up against a lot that they don't want to talk about. There's still a stigma for many people about experiencing depression or anxiety. Although performance anxiety is something that is totally accepted these days. If you get nervous to perform, everybody can relate to that because most people get nervous a little bit when they perform. But you don't really want to talk about it if it's debilitating performance anxiety, right? It's like you kind of don't want other people to know that you're that uncomfortable on stage if that's what's happening to you. And depression and needing to go to a therapist or feeling like you need those massages every week. These are not things that people are still always comfortable sharing. And yet they're serious issues that need to be taken care of. So these are just a few of the things that I help, especially my coaching clients with. I coach musicians of all instruments, not just violin, which is mine. I coach pianists, cellists, flute players, guitar, harp. I have a student who is a carillon player, which is really fun. I love working with musicians of all kinds of instruments. So with my private coaching, it's mostly professionals that I'm working with. Who are experiencing sometimes burnout or frustration because their career isn't kind of at the level where they want it to be. So with my private coaching, I'm helping people to strategize how to achieve their goals in a certain time frame with ease so that they're not going into burnout or overwhelm by overworking or over practicing. A big component of my teaching is how to be efficient with your time and your energy. So I'm teaching my students, this is something we do a lot in my online group classes, my Alexander Musicians classes. We're looking at how essential it is to be conscious of what you're thinking and how to direct your wishes and your thoughts efficiently through the body to undo mental, psychological, and physical blockages so that you can have an idea and carry it out into action and achieve your goals with ease. So let me go back to a few of the other common problems that come up for my students. Getting too intense, like practicing with too much intensity. The thing is, musicians, we love what we do, or we wouldn't be musicians, right? I mean, to the point where I've talked to so many people who are not musicians, and they're envious that we musicians can do what we love and make a living at it. But those people don't realize that we need to step up to such a high level in our whole selves to be able to make great art. You have to be able to get in touch with your emotions and feel them deeply to be able to bring full expression into your music and share that with other people. You have to have incredible communication skills that start with communicating honestly with your own self. So when we get in touch with our feelings, we tend to feel them deeply and strongly, and we get passionate about the emotions in the music. But there is a critical moment where you may start translating the intensity of the emotions into physical tension, where things get really intense. And if you're practicing and making music, performing with that level of intensity a lot, it's going to end up blocking you, actually, because that physical tension in your body is going to make it harder for you to translate your ideas into free movements. You have to be able to express yourself through your body. If you want to have freedom of emotions and expression, you have to have freedom of movement in your body. So it is essential to connect how you're thinking, how you're feeling, with how you're moving in your body if you want to really raise the level, the quality of your music making. And then, of course, getting intense and passionate about your career does the same thing. If you're driving yourself and pushing yourself really hard over a long period of time, or even a short period of time, you're really placing yourself at risk for injury. And so there's a fine line, finding a balance between accepting and feeling the emotions and embodying them fully, but not letting that go into creating excess tension in your body. That's a huge topic that I help my students explore all the time. How can you feel things deeply and not let your body take on all the tension that may come up in reaction to those feelings? Then a couple other things that are problems musicians face commonly, like really, really common problems that people don't kind of want to admit. Imposter syndrome, believing that you're not really good enough to be doing what you want to be doing, like you're never going to be able to get to the level where you feel like you want to go because you don't believe in yourself. You don't feel like you're good enough, and you feel like you're putting yourself out there, but you're a fake. Anybody else out there ever feel like that? Imposter syndrome is really common, and it's something that you can work on, right? Imposter syndrome is going to block you from being able to succeed the way that you are meant to succeed and that you want to succeed. So you've got to deal with imposter syndrome, and usually people need coaching on that. People need help with that because you're dealing with old beliefs that were instilled in you, in your psyche. They're living in your subconscious, and they've been there probably most of your life, if not all of your life. So people usually need a little nudging and objectivity from someone on the outside to reflect the truth of your essential goodness. That's what it comes down to. So imposter syndrome is a big problem. And how many people out there say, oh yes, I suffer from imposter syndrome? Usually not that many people are going to admit that, especially the professionals that are already being successful. People, first of all, would look at them like, what's your problem? You have this incredible career. How can you have imposter syndrome? But trust me, even people on the highest level are suffering from imposter syndrome. And so that's kind of what I'm helping with people with a lot. What else? People pleasing, having to play what your audiences want, kind of getting burned out or feeling like your creativity feels stifled sometimes, where you don't really get to play what you feel like playing. You kind of have to do what other people want you to do. People talk about that sometimes. Professionals do grumble about, especially people in ensembles, orchestras who kind of have to play whatever is on the season's list. What's on the menu, you got to serve it. So there is grumbling about that. But how do you find peace in yourself and enjoyment in playing those pieces that you haven't chosen, that you don't really like sometimes? How can you still get excited about showing up for the rehearsal and doing the performance? That's a big question. It's also solvable. There's just so many problems. I could just list a whole bunch of them, but I'm just going to mention one more. This comes up a lot with performers who are on the road a lot, who have to be away from loved ones. It can feel like a lonely life sometimes, where you're on tour and you're constantly arriving in a new location that's not your home. You have to kind of navigate the airport, getting from the airport to the hotel, learning the new hotel, meeting the person who picks you up, a new person, meeting the management, the new conductor, the new concertmaster, the new musicians you're going to be playing with. You're surrounded by new people, and that can be really fun and exciting, but sometimes you're just tired and you kind of want to be a little more on your own, and you don't feel like being friendly to everybody because you can't be on 100% of the time, right? So that sense of needing to connect with new people and at the same time kind of missing the people at home, the people you're really close to, can add up to a rather lonely, disconnected experience. And that loneliness of successful musicians who are on the road can be a big problem. And people aren't going to talk about that. But that is something that you got to face, because you can be experiencing these difficult emotions and you can pour them into your music, but you don't want to allow yourself to be down and expressing a downward, tight energy through your music making. So we need to have tools and skills that can flip the switch and take you out of an experience of loneliness and into real heart-to-heart connection with all the new people that keep coming into your life and leaving, coming and going. How can you connect deeply through your being, through your presence, with someone else's presence, somebody you don't know, and connect to your audiences on that deep level as well, connecting your heart through your music, through your presence, and connecting with the heart of your audience? That is an incredibly powerful skill that can be learned and worked on. And then the last bit of that is, how do you stay connected heart to heart with your family, with your significant other when you're on the road, so that you don't feel like you're missing out, and so the other people in your life don't feel like you're abandoning them all the time. So this is, again, something that is really important to face. And these topics, all of these problems that come up, need to be talked about and, first of all, acknowledged in yourself, right? You need to acknowledge these issues, because otherwise they will absolutely translate into tension in the body. And that really kind of sabotages your performance and doesn't allow you to fully enjoy your music making, and doesn't allow you to fully enjoy all areas of your life. So if you want to learn more about this, my first invitation is for you to come to my free class. It's online. It's going to be this Saturday, and I put a link at the top of this post for you to register. If you're watching this later, after September 26th, sorry, this is October. Time's getting away from me. This free class is October 26th at noon Eastern Time on Saturday. If you're watching the replay, or you're watching this at some point after the date, please message me, email me if you want to get on the wait list for the next one. And I'm doing these free classes periodically. There will not be a replay of this Saturday's class, but please, if you're interested in these topics, contact me. And also, if you're curious about my private coaching programs, or my online group class, Alexander Musicians, please contact me, and I would be very happy to talk with you personally to see how, what may be blocking you personally in a very individual way. And I'd be happy to talk about some possible solutions to whatever problems you're dealing with right now. So Thank you very much for being here. I would love to get your feedback if you have any comments. I'd love to know if any of the problems that I've talked about today, I touched on quite a few, did any of them speak to you? If you even just want to throw one word out there into the comments, even if you're watching the replay later, months or years later, I still read them all. And if you really want to make sure that I see your comment, tag me. Make sure that I'll get a notification that you had something to add. I'd love to know which of these problems spoke to you, or if you have seen other musicians experiencing some of these issues in their lives. Do you think they are common problems, or do you think they're really not a big deal? I'd love to get your feedback here, and we can continue the conversation in my free Facebook group. I would love for you to join my group if you're not a member yet. I'm just going to give you the link right now to the Musicians Mind Body Practice Tribe. That's my free group on Facebook, and I'm just putting the link now into the comments. Oh, and fabulous, my goodness. I thought nobody was commenting because I wasn't seeing anything, and as soon as I put that link in there, all the comments popped up. So I apologize if you've been saying things and I haven't responded because I didn't see anything. I thought maybe nobody was here. All of a sudden I'm seeing all these comments. Let me take a look. Oh, okay, here. And first I want to say hello to everybody who I can see is here. Irene, I am so happy to have you here. And Angel and Timothy, thank you for being here live with me today. And if you're watching the replay, just type in hello so that I know you're here and we can have a little interaction even after this video is over. And Angel says, hi. Thank you, Angel, for sharing this video. I really, really appreciate that. It's very helpful when you do that for me. That's great. Angel says, I used to ice my legs when I was doing Irish dance competitively. Yes, I know a lot of athletes and dancers are icing themselves every day. I used to teach the Alexander technique in the dance division at the Cincinnati College Conservatory of Music. It was in the dance division, so I was teaching a lot of dancers as well as a lot of musicians from the music division. They would kind of come over to the dance area and take my class. And I remember getting a tour of the dance facilities and seeing where people are icing themselves every day. So I think for dancers, it's just common practice, just like for athletes. And musicians, we are athletes, and yet we do things often on a micro level where we're doing very, very, very fine motor skills and working on these very, very refined, tiny little adjustments. And I don't feel like icing is really the solution. Icing can be helpful, especially if you have no choice and you're like performing for 8 hours a day. And there are people who do shows, they do one after another, and it's like 8-hour days. Well, then yes, you may need to be icing yourself. But I really want you to ask yourself deeply, is this really what I want to do with my life? Do I want to be, it's really overuse, and you're putting yourself at risk for not only physical injury, but emotional issues where you're just pushing yourself beyond what you need to do. So, and that happens to dancers too. And I'm sure you know that, Angel. So yeah, icing is common. And I think if whatever your area is of expertise, you really want to ask yourself deeply, is this really how I want to be taking care of my body? Or do I want to be questioning myself and my purpose? Is this really how I want to live my life? Or are there ways that I can think differently that can allow my body to enjoy more ease so that I don't have to be doing things with so much effort, so much muscular effort that requires icing? So those are some of the questions that I ask my clients and we work on, and I give them very, very specific Alexander etudes to work on twice a day. It takes just a few minutes, and it keeps us out of pain and injury and starts to undo any pain or injury that may have already occurred. So yes, definitely ice is a thing. Angel says, actually my feet, and I ice my feet and use mineral ice on my legs. Right. And Angel said something about a concert. I'm not sure who you're talking about. Oh, maybe you were talking about me because you were at my concert. Yeah. Let's see. Mundo is here. Hello, Mundo. I hope that this conversation is useful for you. If you came on late, hope you can watch the replay later. And yeah, okay. So this is pretty much all I've got for you today. Please, I always love your feedback. So whatever you want to put into the comments is going to be read by me. Ask me your questions. And please come to my free class this Saturday and bring your questions. It's going to be an interactive class where I'm going to present my Art of Freedom perspective and approach to holistic ways of living your life as a musician with joy and ease, staying out of pain, and just loving life, okay? And making really, really, really great music from your heart. So we're going to be talking about that on Saturday. Bring your questions. And I'm also going to be making a special offer to anybody who wants to learn more. So make sure you come, actually, and there will not be a replay this time. So also invite your friends. The more the merrier. This information is very important and I want to get it out into the world. So thank you again for being here. Hope to see you Saturday. And now come on over to the Musicians Mind Body Practice Tribe. I'm going to put a post in there to continue this conversation. And if you're not a member, join. I gave you the link. So enjoy your practicing, be well, and face the problems and take action on solving them, even if it's just a tiny first step today by joining my group and joining in the conversation. Okay, lots of love to you all and happy music making. Bye-bye.